Welcome, weary traveller. Tonight, we descend into the deepest darkness, into the place where light fears to tread, into the ancient and terrible mystery of the Abyss. This is not merely a story about a location in a video game. This is a meditation on emptiness itself, on what it means to be hollow, on the desperate measures of a dying king and the children he created and destroyed in pursuit of salvation. Before we begin, drop a comment telling me where you're listening from tonight. I read every single one, and there's something comforting about knowing we're all drifting off together, scattered across the world but sharing the same darkness. And if these videos help you sleep, consider subscribing. Not for me, but so you don't have to search for this again tomorrow night when you need it. Now let your breathing slow. Let your muscles soften into wherever you rest. Let the world above fade away as we sink together into the depths, into a darkness so complete that it predates the very concept of light. The Abyss exists at the lowest point of Hallownest, beneath the ancient basin, beneath the tangled roots of the White Lady, beneath everything that lives and breathes and thinks. But to call it merely a location is to miss what it truly is. The Abyss is where the void pools in its purest form, where a substance older than gods gathers in concentrations so dense that reality itself seems to thin at the edges. The void is not emptiness in the simple sense. It is not the absence of things. It is something else entirely. A presence that manifests as absence, a substance that exists as non-existence. A darkness so profound that it seems to have weight, to press against the mind, to whisper in frequencies below hearing. Before there was Hallownest, before the pale king shed his worm form and gave consciousness to the bugs of this land, before the radiance blazed across the dreams of moths, the void was already ancient. It pooled in the Abyss, patient and eternal, waiting for nothing because it needed nothing. The void does not think as we think, does not want as we want. It simply is, in the same way that gravity simply is, in the same way that entropy simply is. And yet, it is not entirely without awareness. It responds to certain stimuli. It can be shaped by certain forces. It remembers in its own way everything that has ever touched it. This is where our story begins, not with the void itself, but with the being who thought he could use it. The Pale King came from somewhere beyond Hallownest, a worm of immense size whose very presence transformed the land around him. When he arrived, he shed his massive form, leaving behind a cast-off shell so enormous that it would become a landmark, a monument to what he had sacrificed to become something new. The creature that emerged was smaller but no less powerful, a pale, luminous being whose light awakened consciousness in the bugs who encountered him. Where once they had been simple, creatures of instinct, they began to think, to build, to dream their own dreams. This was the Pale King's gift: individuality, sapience, the ability to exist as a self rather than merely as part of a whole. Under his guidance, Hallownest rose from nothing into a civilization of unprecedented achievement. Cities were carved from living rock, roads connected distant regions, art and science flourished. The bugs of Hallownest believed they had entered a golden age that would last forever. But the Pale King had made an enemy simply by existing. The radiance was ancient when the Pale King was young, a moth goddess of light and unity, whose worship had once encompassed all the lands that would become Hallownest. Her light was not merely illumination, it was connection, a shared dream that linked all who accepted it into a single blazing consciousness. The moths who served her were never alone, never lost, never without purpose. They existed as extensions of her will, and in that existence they found a kind of peace. When the Pale King arrived and began awakening bugs to individual consciousness, the moths faced a choice. They could remain in the Radiance's light, part of her eternal dream, or they could accept the Pale King's gift and become themselves, separate and alone but free. One by one, they chose freedom. One by one, they forgot the goddess who had sustained them for eons, and as they forgot, the Radiance began to fade. For a being like the Radiance, being forgotten is not merely painful, it is existential. Her power was tied to worship, to remembrance, to the minds that held her image. As those minds turned elsewhere, she diminished, her light growing dimmer, her presence growing weaker, her very existence threatened by the simple act of being ignored. She did not go quietly. The infection began as whispers in dreams, as strange thoughts that didn't quite belong, as a creeping orange glow at the edges of consciousness. The bugs of Hallownest didn't understand what was happening at first. They only knew that something was wrong, that their minds were no longer entirely their own, that a foreign presence was growing within them like a tumour made of light. The infected changed. Their eyes took on an orange luminescence. Their movements became erratic, violent. They attacked friends and family, driven by impulses they couldn't understand or control. Those fully consumed became husks, their individual identities burned away by the Radiance's brilliance, leaving only shells that moved and fought in service of a god they had tried to forget. The Pale King watched his kingdom begin to crumble. Everything he had built, everything he had sacrificed for was being destroyed by a force he couldn't fight with armies or walls or laws. The Radiance was attacking through dreams, through the very consciousness he had given his subjects. Against such an assault, conventional defences were useless. He needed a weapon that could contain a god. Needed something that the Radiance's light could not touch. He needed the void. Let your eyes grow heavy as you consider what comes next. The Pale King's plan was elegant in its terrible simplicity, desperate in its scope, and ultimately doomed by a flaw he could not have predicted. But we have time. We have all the time in the world. The darkness is patient, and so are we. The Pale King descended into the abyss to study the void, to learn its properties, to discover whether it could be shaped into a weapon. What he found there changed everything. The void was the antithesis of the Radiance in every way. Where she was light, it was darkness. Where she was consciousness and connection, it was emptiness and isolation. Where she burned with thought and dream and will, the void simply wasn't. It had no mind for the Radiance to touch, no dreams for her to corrupt, no self for her to consume. This was the key. If the Pale King could create a being of pure void, a creature without thought or will or identity, that being could contain the Radiance. It could seal her away, trap her light within its emptiness, end the infection by imprisoning its source. But the void resisted form. It resisted purpose. It resisted everything that would make it useful. The Pale King needed a vessel, a container that could hold the void while remaining empty itself. He needed something hollow. The White Lady was the Pale King's queen, a higher being in her own right, a creature of root and growth whose nature was fertility itself. She could create life, could nurture it, could bring forth new beings from the union of her essence with another's. Together they conceived a solution that would haunt them both for the rest of their existence. They would create children. Not ordinary children, but vessels, containers designed to hold the void, shells without souls meant to seal away a god. These children would be born from the union of the Pale King's essence and the White Lady's fertility, then cast into the abyss to be filled with void, to have whatever spark of self they possessed drowned in primordial darkness. The eggs fell into the void sea like pale tears, sinking into darkness so complete that light itself seemed to dissolve. They gestated in that primordial black, absorbing the void, becoming one with it. When they hatched, they emerged as something new, small, pale figures with horned heads and empty eyes, beings that looked like children, but were designed to be nothing at all. They climbed from the void sea, these newborn vessels, scaled the walls of the abyss with hands that shouldn't have had the strength, reached toward a world they had never seen. Most would never reach it. The Pale King watched them climb. He stood on a platform above the void sea, observing, evaluating, searching for the one perfect vessel among the hundreds, perhaps thousands, that struggled upward through the darkness. Most were flawed. Most showed some trace of consciousness, some hint of will, some spark of self that would make them vulnerable to the radiance. These were failures. These were useless. These were cast back into the abyss to be consumed by the darkness that had birthed them. Imagine being tested for emptiness. Imagine being evaluated on your ability to not exist, to not think, to not feel. Imagine climbing through absolute darkness, driven by something you don't understand, reaching toward a light you've never seen, only to be deemed too alive and thrown back into the void. This was the fate of the vessels, children created to be hollow, judged on their hollowness, destroyed if they showed any sign of being more. The floor of the abyss is littered with their remains, small, pale shells that will never move again, tiny horned skulls staring up at nothing with eyes that hold no light. If you descend far enough, you can see them, hundreds of them, thousands of them, a carpet of dead children stretching into the infinite dark. This is the cost of the Pale King's plan. This is what desperation looks like when it has the power to create life and the willingness to destroy it. But among all those failures, one vessel seemed perfect. It emerged from the void sea and climbed without hesitation, without fear, without any visible sign of the consciousness that had doomed its siblings. It reached the platform where the Pale King waited and looked up at him with eyes that held nothing, no recognition, no curiosity, no hope, no fear. It was empty. It was hollow. It was exactly what the Pale King needed. This vessel was chosen. It was taken from the abyss, raised in the White Palace, trained for its purpose. It would become the Hollow Knight, the pure vessel, the container that would seal away the radiance and save Hallownest. The Pale King invested everything in this child. He trained it to fight, to endure, to contain. He bound it with seals and chains of magic designed to hold a god's fury. He shaped it into the perfect weapon, the perfect prison, the perfect solution to an impossible problem. But the Hollow Knight was not perfect, and this is where the tragedy truly begins. Let your breathing deepen as we approach the heart of this story. Feel the weight of what's coming settle over you like a blanket. The Pale King's plan was doomed from the moment he conceived it, not because of any flaw in his logic, but because of a flaw in his understanding of what consciousness is and where it comes from. The Hollow Knight developed a self. It happened slowly, invisibly, in ways that no test could detect. Perhaps it was the time spent with the Pale King, the training and attention that resembled a father's care. Perhaps it was something inherent in any being complex enough to act in the world. Perhaps consciousness is not a feature that can be designed out, but an emergent property of sufficient complexity, arising inevitably whenever the conditions are right. Whatever the cause, the Hollow Knight was not truly hollow. Deep within its shell, hidden even from itself, was a tiny flame of awareness, a whisper of will, a trace of identity. It loved the Pale King. It wanted to succeed. It felt pride in its purpose and fear of failure. These feelings were buried so deep that the Hollow Knight itself didn't know they existed. But they were there, and the Radiance would find them. There is a memory you can discover in the game, hidden in the birthplace at the bottom of the abyss. In this memory, you see the moment the Hollow Knight was chosen. You see it climbing from the darkness, reaching the platform, being selected by the Pale King. And then you see something else, a small detail that changes everything. As the Pale King leads the Hollow Knight away, the chosen vessel turns its head. It looks back. Just for a moment, just a glance. But it looks back at the abyss, at the darkness it's leaving behind, at the sibling still climbing who will never be chosen. A truly hollow being would not look back. A truly empty vessel would have no reason to turn, no curiosity about what it was leaving, no connection to the place of its birth. But the Hollow Knight looked back, and in that single gesture, its doom was sealed. The Pale King saw this. He must have seen it, and he chose to ignore it, to proceed with the plan anyway, because he had no other options, because Hallownest was dying, because sometimes you have to believe in a flawed solution when the alternative is no solution at all. The sealing took place in the Blackegg Temple, a structure built specifically to contain the Radiance. 3 dreamers, Monomon the teacher, Lurien the watcher, and Hera the beast, agreed to enter an eternal sleep, their dreams forming barriers that would keep the temple sealed, that would prevent anyone from reaching the Hollow Knight and potentially releasing the god trapped within. Each dreamer had their own reasons for accepting this fate. Monomon sought to preserve knowledge and protect her students. Lurien was devoted to the Pale King with an intensity that bordered on worship. Hera bargained for something precious, a child, born from her union with the Pale King, a daughter who would become known as Hornet. They entered their eternal sleep willingly, sacrificing their waking lives to maintain the seals that would keep Hallownest safe. The Radiance was drawn into the Hollow Knight, her blazing consciousness compressed into a shell designed to contain nothing. The seals were set, the temple was closed, and for a time, for centuries, it worked. The infection stopped spreading. The kingdom celebrated its salvation. The Pale King was hailed as a savior. But inside the Blackegg Temple, a war was being fought that no one could see. The Radiance never stopped fighting. She pressed against the walls of her prison, sought weaknesses, exploited any crack she could find, and she found one. That tiny flame of consciousness that the Hollow Knight had never been able to extinguish. Through that crack, she worked. Through that flaw, she pushed. Year after year, century after century, she eroded the barriers that contained her, using the Hollow Knight's hidden self as a foothold. The Hollow Knight felt every moment of this assault. It had been trained to contain, to endure, to hold. It did its duty with a determination that would have been admirable if it hadn't been so tragic. But it was losing. Slowly, imperceptibly, the radiance was breaking free, and the Hollow Knight knew it. It knew that its flaw was dooming everything, that its failure to be truly empty was destroying the kingdom it had been created to save. During the boss fight against the Hollow Knight, something happens that reveals the depth of its suffering. In the middle of combat, the Hollow Knight stops attacking and stabs itself with its own nail. It drives the blade into its own shell, trying to destroy the radiance within, trying to end its own existence, trying to do through self-destruction what it couldn't do through containment. This is not a glitch or a random attack pattern. This is a being that has endured centuries of torment, choosing death over continued failure. Let that image settle into your mind as your body grows heavier as sleep approaches. A creature created to feel nothing, feeling everything. A vessel designed to be empty, filled with centuries of pain. A child who only wanted to save its father's kingdom, destroying itself because it couldn't. While the Hollow Knight suffered in the Black Egg Temple, another vessel escaped the abyss entirely. The Knight, the player character, the little ghost, the protagonist of Hollow Knight, was one of the discarded children, deemed too flawed to serve as the perfect vessel. It should have died in the abyss like its siblings. It should have been consumed by the void, unmade, returned to the nothing from which it came. But it climbed. Against all odds, against all reason, against the very nature it had been given, it climbed out of the abyss and escaped Hallownest entirely. For years, perhaps decades, the Knight wandered the wastelands beyond the kingdom. It moved without apparent purpose, existed without clear motivation, simply was. Its hollow nature meant it didn't need food or rest, didn't seek companionship or comfort. It just wandered, a small pale figure drifting through a world it didn't understand, and then something called it back. The game never explains what drew the Knight to Hallownest. Perhaps it was the weakening of the seals, some signal that only vessels could hear. Perhaps it was the void itself recognizing that its champion was failing and summoning a replacement. Perhaps it was something simpler. Instinct, fate, the random movements of a hollow being that happened to lead it home. Whatever the cause, the Knight returned to a kingdom in ruins. Hallownest had fallen. The Pale King had vanished, retreating to his White Palace before disappearing entirely. The infection had begun to spread again as the Hollow Knight's containment weakened. The great cities were empty, their inhabitants dead or transformed into mindless husks. The roads were broken, the institutions collapsed. The civilization that had seemed eternal reduced to ruins and memories. The Knight descended into this dying world and began to explore. It fought infected creatures, discovered ancient secrets, grew stronger with each challenge overcome. It learned the history of Hallownest, pieced together the story of the vessels, came to understand what it was and why it had been created. And it made a choice, or something like a choice if a hollow being can choose, to finish what the Hollow Knight had started. To reach the Black Egg Temple and confront the Radiance, the Knight had to kill the three dreamers. This is one of the game's most morally complex requirements. The dreamers were not villains. They were beings who had sacrificed everything to protect Hallownest, who had entered eternal sleep so that others could live, and the Knight had to end that sleep, had to kill them in their dreams, had to break the seals they had given their lives to maintain. Monomon surrounded by her archives, her life's work preserved in acid-resistant containers. Lurien still watching from his spire, still loyal to a king who had abandoned him. Hera dreaming of the daughter she had bargained for, the child she would never see grow up. The night killed them all, not out of malice but out of necessity, because the seals had to break, because the hollow night had to be reached, because the radiance had to be stopped once and for all. The confrontation in the Black Egg Temple is not a triumphant boss fight. It is a mercy killing. The hollow night that the night faces is broken, shattered by centuries of containment, barely holding together. Infection leaks from cracks in its shell. Its movements are erratic, interrupted by spasms of pain. It fights because fighting is all it knows how to do, but there is no victory possible for it, no outcome where it survives. And then it stabs itself, and the true battle begins. The radiance emerges from the broken vessel, blazing with light that has been contained for far too long. She is fury incarnate, a god who's been imprisoned for centuries and wants nothing more than to burn the world that forgot her. The battle takes place in the dream realm, in a space of pure light and fury, where the night faces a being of immense power with nothing but a nail and the void within. But the night is not alone. In the true ending, achieved by obtaining the Void Heart and fully accepting its nature, something extraordinary happens. As the battle reaches its climax, the Night's siblings emerge. All those discarded vessels, all those failed experiments, all those children who were created and destroyed in the abyss, they rise from the night, a tide of darkness that overwhelms the radiance's light. They pour forth like shadows given form, hundreds of them, thousands of them, the collective dead of the abyss finally given purpose. They drag the radiance down, pull her into the void, consume her brilliance with their combined emptiness. The god of light is extinguished not by a single hero, but by the accumulated weight of all those who were sacrificed in her name. This is the redemption of the abyss. All that suffering, all that tragedy, all those brief and terrible existences finally serve a purpose. The discarded children become the instruments of victory. The darkness that was meant to contain the light instead destroys it. The void, patient and eternal, claims the god who had burned so brightly for so long, and the night. The night is gone. Absorbed into the void, its individual existence ended. It has become something else, the Shade Lord perhaps, or simply part of the greater darkness. The self that it may or may not have had dissolves into the collective, and in that dissolution there is a kind of peace. But we are not done yet. The story of the abyss has more layers, more depths to explore, more darkness to sink into. Let your body grow heavier as we continue. Let your breathing find its own rhythm. Let the weight of the narrative press you gently toward rest. There is a place in the abyss called the birthplace, and it is here that the night can recover its most important memory. To reach it, you must descend to the very bottom of the chasm, past the platforms where the Pale King once stood, past the remains of countless siblings, down to the edge of the void sea itself. And there, if you have the right ability, you can sink into the darkness and discover what lies beneath. The birthplace is not a physical location so much as a memory preserved in void. When the night enters it, it experiences fragments of its own origin, the moment of its creation, the climb from the void sea, the testing and the discarding. But more importantly, it witnesses the moment that doomed the Pale King's plan. In this memory, you see the Hollow Knight being chosen. You see it climbing from the darkness, reaching the platform, being selected as the perfect vessel. The Pale King stands waiting, and when the Hollow Knight reaches him, he turns to lead it away. This is the moment of triumph, the culmination of countless failed attempts, the selection of the one vessel that would save Hallownest, and then the Hollow Knight looks back. It is such a small gesture, so easy to miss. Just a turn of the head, a glance over the shoulder, a moment of attention directed at something other than the path forward. But in that gesture is everything. A truly hollow being would not look back. A truly empty vessel would have no reason to turn, no curiosity about what it was leaving, no connection to the siblings still climbing in the darkness below. The Pale King sees this. In the memory, you can watch him notice, can see the moment of recognition cross his features. He knows that the Hollow Knight is not perfect, that it has developed some trace of consciousness, that the plan is already compromised. And he proceeds anyway, because what choice does he have? The kingdom is dying, the infection is spreading. This flawed vessel is the best he has, and a flawed solution is better than no solution at all. This is the tragedy at the heart of Hollow Knight's lore. Not that the Pale King was evil, not that he didn't care about his children, but that he was desperate enough to use a tool he knew was broken to build his kingdom's salvation on a foundation he knew was cracked. He gambled everything on a vessel that had already failed the most important test, and he lost. The memory in the birthplace also reveals something else, the presence of another vessel watching from the shadows. This is the Knight, the player character, witnessing its own past. It was there when the Hollow Knight was chosen. It saw its sibling selected, saw itself passed over, saw the moment that would determine the fate of the kingdom. And then it was cast back into the abyss, deemed too flawed to serve, left to die in the darkness with all the other failures. But it didn't die. It climbed. It escaped. It wandered for years in the wastelands beyond Hallownest, and then it returned, drawn by forces it didn't understand, to finish what its sibling couldn't. The Void Heart is the reward for completing the birthplace, for confronting the Knight's origins and accepting what it truly is. This charm represents full integration of the void nature, complete acceptance of the darkness within. With the Void Heart equipped, the Knight's relationship with the void changes fundamentally. The shade that normally appears when the Knight dies becomes part of it, integrated rather than separate. The siblings in the abyss become peaceful, recognizing the Knight as one of their own, rather than an intruder to be attacked. And most importantly, the Void Heart allows access to the true ending, the confrontation with the radiance that ends not in containment but in destruction. Let your eyes grow heavy as you consider what the Void Heart represents. It is not about becoming empty or hollow or without self. It is about acceptance. Accepting the darkness as part of what you are, integrating the void rather than fighting against it. The Knight with the Void Heart is not less than it was. It is more, complete in a way it never was before. We carry our own darknesses, our own voids, our own empty spaces that we try to ignore or fill or escape. The lesson of the Void Heart is that these spaces are not enemies to be conquered, but aspects to be accepted. The darkness is part of us, and accepting it is part of being whole. There is another location in the abyss that deserves attention, the Lifeblood Core. Hidden in a secret area accessible only through careful exploration, this chamber contains a massive concentration of lifeblood, a mysterious blue substance that exists in opposition to the void. Where the void is darkness and emptiness, lifeblood is vitality and fullness. Where the void consumes and negates, lifeblood heals and sustains. The two substances seem to be fundamental opposites, yin and yang, the two poles around which the metaphysics of Hollow Knight revolves. The lifeblood core pulses with blue light in the depths of the abyss, a pocket of life in the heart of emptiness. How it came to be there, what it means, why it exists. These questions are never fully answered, but its presence suggests that even in the deepest darkness, even in the most absolute void, there is room for something else. Emptiness and fullness can coexist. Darkness and light can share the same space. This is a comforting thought as you drift towards sleep. The void of unconsciousness that awaits you is not pure emptiness. It contains dreams, contains rest, contains the renewal that makes waking possible. The darkness is not the absence of everything good, but the presence of something different, something necessary, something that makes the light meaningful by contrast. The creatures of the abyss have adapted to existence in ways that seem impossible. The siblings, the shades of failed vessels, drift through the darkness, attacking anything that enters their domain. But they are not the only inhabitants. There are other beings, creatures that evolved in the void, life forms that call the absolute darkness home. How do they survive? What do they eat? How do they reproduce? The game doesn't explain, and perhaps explanation is impossible. The abyss operates by rules that don't apply elsewhere, follows laws that contradict ordinary biology. Perhaps the creatures of the abyss don't need sustenance in the conventional sense. Perhaps they feed on the void itself, drawing energy from emptiness, thriving on absence. Or perhaps they are not truly alive, not in the way we understand life. Perhaps they are something else, something that exists without the requirements of ordinary existence, something that simply is without needing to eat or breathe or reproduce. The void makes many impossible things possible. Life without the usual requirements of life may be one of them. The ecology of the abyss is disturbing but also fascinating. It suggests that existence can take forms we never imagined, that life, or something like life, can adapt to any conditions, can find a way even in the most hostile environments. The abyss is not dead. It is differently alive, home to beings that have no counterpart in the world above. As you sink deeper into relaxation, consider the adaptability of existence. You're adapting right now, transitioning from the waking state to the sleeping state, shifting from one mode of being to another. Your body knows how to do this. It has done it every night of your life. The transition is natural, inevitable, as much a part of existence as breathing or heartbeat. The creatures of the abyss adapted to darkness. You're adapting to rest. Both are expressions of the same fundamental truth. Existence finds a way. Life, or whatever we call the thing that makes us more than mere matter, adjusts to circumstances, flows into available spaces, continues in whatever form the environment allows. Let yourself adapt now. Let the waking state give way to the sleeping state. Let consciousness dim and dreams approach. You don't need to force anything. You just need to allow the transition that your body already knows how to make. The architecture of the abyss tells its own story. The Pale King built extensively in the depths, platforms and chambers and pathways that allowed him to work in that hostile environment. These structures still stand, pale stone glowing faintly against the absolute darkness, monuments to ambition and desperation. The architecture is functional rather than beautiful. There are no decorations, no flourishes, no attempts to make the space pleasant. Everything serves a purpose. Platforms for standing, chambers for working, pathways for moving. The Pale King was not in the abyss to admire the view. He was there to create weapons, to forge vessels, to save his kingdom by any means necessary. The most significant structure is the platform at the very bottom, directly above the void sea. This is where the Pale King stood to watch his children emerge from the darkness, where he evaluated them, where he chose or discarded them. The platform is empty now, abandoned like everything else in the abyss. But standing on it, looking down at the void sea, you can almost feel the weight of what happened here. Thousands of children climbed toward this platform, most never reached it. Those who did were judged, and most were found wanting. Only one was chosen, and even that one was flawed. The lighthouse at the edge of the void sea is another significant structure. The Pale King built it to hold back the darkness, to create a small space of illumination in the endless night. Its light allowed him to work, to see, to maintain some connection to the world above. But the lighthouse is dark now, its mechanisms have failed, its fuel has been exhausted, its purpose has been forgotten. It stands silent at the edge of the void sea, a monument to the belief that light can exist even in the darkest places. There is something melancholy about abandoned lighthouses, about beacons that no longer burn. They speak of duties completed, of watches ended, of the peace that comes when the struggle is over. The lighthouse in the abyss has earned its rest. Its light held back the darkness for as long as it was needed, and now the darkness has reclaimed its domain. You're like a lighthouse dimming toward rest. The light of consciousness that has burned all day is faded now, its fuel exhausted, its purpose fulfilled. Soon the darkness will reclaim you, will wrap around you, will hold you until morning. This is not defeat but completion, not failure but rest. The lighthouse served its purpose, and so have you. Now it is time to let the light fade, to let the darkness come, to let rest arrive. The Pale King's guilt is one of the most debated aspects of Hollow Knight's lore. Did he feel remorse for what he did? Did the weight of his choices press upon him? The evidence is ambiguous, open to interpretation, but there are hints. After the sealing of the Radiance, the Pale King withdrew. He retreated to his White Palace, became increasingly isolated, eventually disappeared entirely. This withdrawal could have many explanations, but guilt is among the most plausible. He had created children and destroyed them. He had used his own offspring as tools, as experiments, as disposable means to an end. He had looked into the eyes of countless vessels and seen nothing, because he had designed them to be nothing, because he needed them to be nothing. But they were not nothing. They were his children, born from his essence and the White Lady's fertility. They had the potential for consciousness, for feeling, for being. He had suppressed that potential, had punished it when it appeared, had discarded the children who showed signs of being more than empty shells. How does a father live with such knowledge? How does a king justify such actions? The Pale King may have told himself that it was necessary, that the alternative was worse, that the ends justified the means. but such justifications ring hollow in the quiet hours when the mind has nothing to do but remember. The White Palace, when the night finally reaches it, is a place of torment. Saw blades and spikes fill its corridors, challenges designed to test and punish. Some interpret this as the Pale King's way of testing potential successors, a gauntlet that only the worthy could survive. Others see it as self-punishment, a king tormenting himself for the things he had done. At the end of the White Palace, in the throne room, you find a corpse. The Pale King is dead, his body slumped on his throne, his light extinguished. How he died, when he died, why he died, these questions are never answered, but his death feels like a conclusion, an ending to a story that had become too heavy to continue. The king who created and destroyed so many children finally stopped, finally rested, finally let go of the burden he had carried. There is a king's soul in the corpse, half of a charm that represents the Pale King's essence. The other half is held by the White Lady, still alive, still bound by roots, still mourning. Together the two halves form the king soul, a charm of immense power that slowly generates soul energy. But the king soul can be transformed into something else, the void heart, by bringing it to the birthplace and allowing the void to consume it. This transformation is symbolic. The essence of the Pale King, the light he brought to Hallownest, is consumed by the darkness he tried to use. The king soul becomes the void heart, and in that becoming something is completed. The Pale King's legacy is not his light but the darkness he unleashed, not his gift of consciousness but the empty children he created. The void heart is his true inheritance, and accepting it is accepting the full weight of what he did. Let this weight settle over you, not as a burden, but as a blanket. The Pale King's story is heavy, yes, but heaviness can be comforting. It holds you in place, prevents you from drifting, gives you something solid to rest against. The weight of the past, fully felt, becomes a kind of peace. What happened has happened. What was done. There is nothing to change, nothing to fix, nothing to do but accept and rest. The White Lady's grief is different from the Pale King's guilt. Where he withdrew and eventually died, she remains, bound by roots of her own making, having sealed away her fertility so that no more vessels could ever be created. She speaks of her children with something like love, something like sorrow. She acknowledges them as children in a way the Pale King never did. She seems to feel their loss, their suffering, their brief and tragic existences. Her self-imposed imprisonment is a penance, yes, but it is also a vigil, a mother keeping watch over the memory of children she could not protect. When the night visits the White Lady, she recognizes it as one of her offspring. She speaks to it gently, calls it little one, expresses something like hope that it might succeed where the hollow night failed. There is no judgment in her words, no disappointment that this vessel was once deemed a failure. She accepts it as it is, loves it as it is, wishes it well on its journey. This acceptance is a gift. The night was created to be empty, was tested and found wanting, was cast into the abyss to die. And yet here is its mother, still alive, still caring, still hoping. The White Lady's love persists despite everything, despite the tragedy, despite the failure, despite the centuries of grief. Love, it seems, is harder to extinguish than light. As you drift towards sleep, consider the loves that persist in your own life. The people who care about you despite your flaws, who accept you as you are, who wish you well on your journey. These loves are not contingent on your success or failure, not dependent on your achievements or your emptiness. They simply are, like the White Lady's love for her children, enduring through tragedy and time. You are loved. You are accepted. You are wished well. Let this knowledge comfort you as you sink into rest, as the darkness embraces you, as sleep approaches. You're not alone in the void. You carry love with you, and love carries you. The Grim Troop offers another perspective on the themes of the Abyss, though it comes from outside Hallownest entirely. This travelling circus of nightmare creatures is drawn to kingdoms in their death throes, arriving to perform a ritual that is repeated countless times across countless dying lands. The Nightmare King Grim is ancient, perhaps as old as the Radiance herself. He exists through an endless cycle of death and rebirth, the ritual of the Nightmare Flame. A child is born, the Grim Child, and it must be fed with flames gathered from fallen warriors. When it has consumed enough, the ritual reaches its climax, and Grim is reborn, and the cycle begins again. The knight can participate in this ritual, can help perpetuate the cycle, can even face the Nightmare King himself in one of the game's most challenging battles. Or the knight can choose to end the cycle entirely, to banish the troop and break the pattern that has repeated since before memory. This choice mirrors the larger choice about the Radiance: continue the cycle or break it forever, perpetuate the pattern or end it. The Grim Troop storyline suggests that Hallownest's tragedy is not unique, that other ancient powers exist, that the world is full of gods and rituals and cycles beyond counting. The Abyss is just one darkness among many. The void is just one emptiness in a universe full of them. But the void is the emptiness we have explored tonight, and it is enough. More than enough. It contains multitudes, tragedy and peace, horror and beauty, death and something that might be called rebirth. The Abyss holds all of this, has held it for eons, will hold it forever. The Godmaster content expands further on the theme of divinity, presenting a pantheon of bosses as gods to be challenged and overcome. The God-Seeker, a being devoted to finding and worshipping the most powerful god, has come to Hallownest seeking worthy deities. She finds the night, finds the void, finds something that transcends her understanding of what divinity means. In the pantheons, the night faces every boss in sequence, culminating in battles against the most powerful beings in Hallownest. Completing these challenges unlocks additional endings, additional perspectives on the conflict between void and light. The Godmaster content suggests that the knight's power rivals or exceeds that of the gods themselves, that the void it carries is a force beyond even divine comprehension. The absolute radiance faced at the end of the pantheon of Hallownest is the radiance at her full power, not weakened by centuries of imprisonment, not diminished by the Hollow Knight's containment, but blazing with all the fury she possessed before the sealing. Defeating her is one of the game's greatest challenges, requiring mastery of every skill the knight has developed. And when she falls, when the void consumes her utterly, the implications are staggering. The knight, this small, silent, supposedly hollow being, has destroyed a god at the height of her power. The void has proven itself stronger than light, emptiness more powerful than brilliance. The darkness wins, not through patience or endurance, but through sheer overwhelming force. This is the disturbing truth at the heart of the Abyss. The void is not merely passive, not merely accepting, not merely the background against which existence plays out. It is powerful, it is hungry, and when it finally moves, when it finally acts, nothing can stand against it. But power is not the same as malice. The void does not hate the light. It does not want to destroy. It simply is what it is, and what it is happens to be stronger than anything else. The radiance burned for eons, blazed across the dreams of countless beings, refused to fade even when the world forgot her. And the void was there before her, will be there after her, was always going to be there after her. Her light was borrowed time. The darkness was always going to reclaim what was always its own. Let this truth settle into you without fear. The darkness is stronger than the light, yes, but the darkness is not hostile. It is simply patient, simply eternal, simply waiting for the light to exhaust itself. And when the light fades, as all lights fade, as all fires burn out, as all days end, the darkness is there to receive what remains. Sleep is a small death of the light. Consciousness fades, awareness dims, the bright flame of waking thought gutters and goes out. But this is not destruction, it is rest. The darkness of sleep is not hostile but welcoming, not threatening, but comforting. It holds you through the night, keeps you safe until morning, gives you the rest you need to burn brightly again. The void holds the remains of the radiance now, somewhere in its infinite depths. Her light is extinguished, her consciousness ended, her eternal existence finally brought to a close. But the void does not gloat, does not celebrate, does not even notice. It simply continues, as it always has, as it always will. The radiance is part of it now, absorbed and accepted and held without judgment. Even gods find rest in the void eventually. The Shade Lord is what the night becomes in certain endings, a massive entity of pure void that emerges from the Black Egg Temple after the radiance is destroyed. This being is no longer the small, silent figure that explored Hallownest. It is something else entirely, something vast and terrible and new. The Shade Lord represents the void given will, given purpose, given the agency that it normally lacks. For a moment the darkness moves with intention, acts with direction, becomes something more than passive emptiness, and then it fades, sinking back into the abyss, returning to the patient stillness that is its natural state. What does it mean that the night can become the Shade Lord? Perhaps it means that the void was never truly empty, that it always had the potential for consciousness, that it was simply waiting for the right vessel to give it form. Perhaps it means that the night's self, supposedly hollow, was strong enough to shape the void rather than being shaped by it. Perhaps it means something else entirely, something that the game leaves for players to interpret. The Shade Lord is disturbing because it suggests that the void is not safe, not predictable, not the passive background we might want it to be. It can wake up, it can move, it can become something with will and purpose and power, and when it does, nothing in the world can stand against it. But the Shade Lord also fades. It does not rampage across Hallownest, does not consume the world, does not become a new threat to replace the radiance. It simply stops. It returns to the abyss, sinks back into the darkness, becomes once again the patient emptiness it was before. The void's moment of agency is brief, and then it is over, and the darkness is still once more. This is perhaps the most comforting aspect of the void's nature. It does not want to act. It does not seek power or dominion or control. When it moves briefly, a accomplishes what needs to be accomplished, and then returns to rest. The Shade Lord destroyed the radiance and then faded away. The void's purpose was fulfilled, and so the void returned to purposelessness. Your purpose today is fulfilled as well. Whatever you needed to do, you have done. Whatever you needed to be, you have been. And now you can return to rest, can fade into the darkness of sleep, can let go of purpose and simply be. Tomorrow will bring new purposes, new tasks, new reasons to act. But tonight, there is only rest. The Abyss is not merely a location in a video game. It is a meditation on some of the deepest questions we can ask. What is consciousness? Can it be eliminated, suppressed, designed out of existence? The Pale King believed it could. He created the vessels to be empty, tested them rigorously, discarded any that showed signs of awareness, and he failed. Because consciousness is not a feature, but an emergent property arising inevitably from sufficient complexity. The Hollow Knight's tragedy is the tragedy of anyone who has tried to be something they're not. It was created to be empty, trained to be empty, needed to be empty. But it couldn't be, because emptiness of that kind may be impossible for any being capable of acting in the world. It developed a self despite everything, and that self became its doom. There is a strange comfort in this. If consciousness cannot be eliminated, then we cannot be truly unmade. The parts of us that think and feel and experience are not accidents that could have been prevented, but inevitabilities that arise from what we are. We are conscious because consciousness is what complex beings do. It is not a burden we carry, but a nature we express. The philosophy of emptiness that underlies the Abyss connects to traditions far older than video games. In Buddhist thought, shunyata, emptiness, is not mere absence but a fundamental characteristic of reality. All things are empty in the sense that they lack inherent, independent existence. They arise from causes and conditions, depend on other things, have no fixed essence that makes them what they are regardless of context. The void in Hollow Knight resonates with this understanding. It is not mere nothingness but a positive force, a substance that exists as non-existence, a presence that manifests as absence. The vessels, beings of void given form, embody this paradox. They exist, but they are made of non-existence. They act, but they are designed to be without will. Understanding emptiness in the Buddhist sense is liberating rather than depressing. If nothing has fixed essence, then nothing is permanently broken, permanently flawed, permanently doomed. Change is always possible because nothing is inherently anything. The self that feels trapped or limited or insufficient is not a fixed thing but a process, a flow, a becoming that can become something else. The knight's journey can be read through this lens. It was created to be empty, was deemed a failure, was cast into the abyss to die. But it didn't die. It climbed, escaped, wandered, returned. It became something its creators never intended, achieved something they thought impossible. The emptiness that's supposed to define it became the space in which it could become something new. You're not fixed either. The self that lies down to sleep tonight is not the same self that will wake tomorrow. You are a process, a flow, a becoming. The emptiness within you, the spaces between thoughts, the pauses between breaths, the darkness behind closed eyes, is not a flaw but a feature, not a lack but a possibility. In that emptiness, change can happen. In that void, new things can arise. Let this understanding comfort you as you approach sleep. You're not trapped in being who you are. You're not doomed to repeat the same patterns forever. The emptiness within you is the space where transformation happens, where rest becomes renewal, where the self that was tired becomes the self that is refreshed. The void in Hollow Knight transforms everything it touches. The vessels were transformed by it, filled with darkness, made into something that had never existed before. The radiance was transformed by it, consumed, ended, absorbed into the infinite black. Even the night is transformed, becoming the Shade Lord in certain endings, merging with the collective void, losing individual existence but gaining something else. Transformation is not destruction. The vessels were not destroyed by the void, they were created by it. The radiance was not merely ended, she was absorbed, became part of something larger, found a kind of rest in the darkness that had always been her opposite. Transformation is change, is becoming, is the movement from one state to another. Sleep transforms you every night. The waking self dissolves into dreams, into the void of dreamless sleep, into states of consciousness that you cannot remember or control. And then, in the morning, something emerges, the same self, or something like it, transformed. By the night's passage, renewed by the darkness, ready to face another day. Let the transformation happen. Let the waking self dissolve. Let the darkness do its work, whatever that work might be. You don't need to understand the process, you just need to trust it. Sleep has transformed you every night of your life, and you have always emerged on the other side. Tonight is no different. The transformation is safe, is natural, is necessary. Let it come. The void offers a different kind of comfort. It is ancient beyond measure, patient beyond understanding, accepting beyond judgment. It does not care what you have done or failed to do, what you are or wish you were. It simply is, and in its presence, the weight of selfhood can feel lighter. Not because the self disappears, but because the self is held by something larger, something that has existed since before time and will exist after time ends. When you sleep, you touch something like the void. Consciousness dims, the self grows quiet, and you sink into a darkness that is not hostile but restful. Dreams may come, strange visions from the depths of your mind, but beneath the dreams there is stillness. There is the void of dreamless sleep, the emptiness that allows rest, the nothing that makes waking possible. The abyss in Hollow Knight is this void made visible, given form and history and tragedy. But the void itself is not tragic. It is simply the ground from which existence arises, the darkness that makes light meaningful, the silence that gives sound its shape. Without emptiness, there could be no fullness. Without the void, there could be no self to rest within it. Let this understanding settle into you as your breathing slows, as your muscles release their tension, as the boundary between waking and sleeping grows thin. The Pale King's white palace still exists in a sense. It has shifted into the dream realm, accessible only to those who know how to find it. Within its twisted corridors, the evidence of his final days remains. Saw blades and spikes, challenges designed to test and torment, a path that leads to a fragment of his essence. Some interpret the White Palace as a test for potential successors, a gauntlet that only the worthy could survive. Others see it as self-punishment, a king tormenting himself for the things he had done. The truth may be both, or neither, or something else entirely. The Pale King was a being of immense intelligence and equally immense blindness, capable of building a civilization and destroying his own children, of giving consciousness to a kingdom and failing to recognize it in his own creations. What happened to him in the end? The game never says with certainty. He may have died, consumed by guilt, unable to bear the weight of his choices. He may have fled, abandoning the kingdom he had built when he realized it was doomed. He may have transcended, ascending to some plane of existence beyond mortal understanding. Or he may simply have faded, his light growing dimmer as the kingdom that sustained him crumbled into ruin. The White Lady remains bound by roots of her own making, having sealed away her fertility so that no more vessels could ever be created. She speaks of her children with something like love, something like grief. Unlike the Pale King, she acknowledges them as children, mourns them as children, carries the weight of what was done to them. Her self-imposed imprisonment is a penance, a determination that she will never again participate in such tragedy. Hornet remains as well, the daughter of the Pale King and Hera, born as part of the bargain that made her mother a dreamer. She's not a vessel, not hollow, not filled with void. She's something else, a child of two higher beings who exist fully in the world, who fights and speaks and feels without the emptiness that defines her half-siblings. She guards Hallownest's secrets, challenges those who would disturb them, and ultimately comes to recognize the night as something like family. In the true ending, when the night sacrifices itself to destroy the radiance, Hornet is left behind. She survives, the last child of the Pale King, the only one who was allowed to be a person rather than a tool. What she does next, how she carries the weight of being the sole survivor of a divine family, is a story for another time. For now, she watches, she waits, she remembers. The void sea still pools at the bottom of the abyss, patient and eternal. The lighthouse the Pale King built still stands at its edge, though its light went out long ago. The platforms and chambers where vessels were tested and discarded still hang in the darkness, monuments to ambition and desperation. And the remains of the siblings still litter the floor, small pale shells that will never move again, children who were created and destroyed in pursuit of a salvation that never came. But the void itself is unchanged. It was there before the Pale King descended into the abyss, before the vessels were created, before Hallownest rose or fell. It will be there long after the last memory of the kingdom has faded, after the ruins have crumbled to dust, after the very concept of Hallownest has lost all meaning. The void is eternal in a way that nothing else in the game is eternal. It is the background against which all the tragedy plays out, the darkness that was there at the beginning and will be there at the end. There is peace in this permanence. The void does not worry about the future because it has no future to worry about. It simply continues moment after moment, age after age, forever. It does not regret the past because it has no past to regret. Everything that has happened is simply part of what it is, absorbed and accepted and held without judgment. The void exists in an eternal present, and in that present there is no anxiety, no anticipation, no fear of what comes next. When you sleep, you enter something like this eternal present. The past recedes, the future has not yet arrived, and there is only now this breath, this heartbeat, this moment of rest. The worries that seem so urgent during the day lose their power in the darkness. The plans that demanded attention can wait until morning. There is only the present, only the rest, only the gentle dissolution of waking consciousness into the void of sleep. The Mantis Lords offer an interesting contrast to the tragedy of the Abyss. These warriors rule the Mantis village in the fungal wastes, and unlike most of Hallownest, they were never infected. They resisted the Radiance through sheer will, through discipline, through a culture that valued strength and honour above all else. When the Knight first enters the Mantis village, the Mantises are hostile. They see the Knight as an intruder, a threat, something to be driven away or destroyed. But if the Knight defeats the Mantis Lords in combat, a challenging but fair fight, everything changes. The Mantises bow in respect. They allow the Knight to pass freely. They recognise it as worthy, as an equal, as something that has earned their regard. This is a different kind of relationship than the Knight has with most of Hallownest. The infected attack mindlessly. The surviving bugs are often hostile or afraid, but the Mantises judge the Knight on its merits, respect it for its strength, accept it as a peer. There is something refreshing about this, something clean and honest in a world full of tragedy and decay. The Mantis Lords themselves are fascinating characters. They fight together, coordinating their attacks, covering each other's weaknesses. They are not mindless enemies, but skilled warriors, and defeating them requires the Knight to be at its best. When they fall with dignity, acknowledging the Knight's victory without resentment or shame. The Mantises remind us that not everything in Hallownest is infected, not everything is tragic, not everything is doomed. Some things endure, some cultures survive, some beings maintain their dignity and their will, even as the world crumbles around them. The Mantises are not saved by the Knight's actions. They save themselves, through strength and discipline and the refusal to submit to the Radiance's light. There is a lesson here about resilience. The infection spread through Hallownest because the bugs had no defense against it, no way to resist the Radiance's assault on their dreams. But the Mantises found a way. They built a culture strong enough to withstand a god's fury, a discipline rigid enough to keep the infection at bay. They are not hollow, not empty, not without self, and yet they survived where the Pale King's carefully designed vessels failed. Perhaps true protection comes not from emptiness, but from strength. Not from the absence of self, but from a self so strong that it cannot be overwhelmed. The Mantises are full of will, full of purpose, full of the fierce pride that defines their culture. And that fullness, paradoxically, is what kept them safe. As you approach sleep, consider your own strength. Not physical strength necessarily, but the strength of self that has carried you through your life. You have faced challenges, have endured difficulties, have survived things that might have broken you. You are still here, still yourself, still capable of rest and renewal. That is strength. That is resilience. That is the Mantis way, applied to the challenges of ordinary existence. You're strong enough to rest. You're strong enough to let go, to release the day's tensions, to sink into the darkness without fear. The strength that carried you through the day will carry you through the night. It will be there when you wake, ready to face whatever tomorrow brings. But tonight, it can rest. Tonight, even strength can be still. Let yourself sink into this present now. Let the past fade. The events of the day, the memories that crowd your mind, the weight of everything you have experienced. Let the future wait. The tasks that need doing, the problems that need solving, the life that will resume when you wake. There is only now. There is only this moment. There is only the darkness behind your closed eyes. the silence that surrounds you, the stillness that holds you. The siblings in the abyss found their peace, one way or another. Those who were consumed by the void returned to the darkness from which they came, their brief existences ending in the same emptiness where they began. Those who survived as shades exist in a state between being and non-being, attacking intruders not out of malice but out of instinct, defending a home they never chose. And those who emerged in the true ending to destroy the Radiance finally served the purpose they were created for, finally mattered, finally made a difference. The night found its peace as well, though not the kind of peace we usually imagine. It did not survive to enjoy its victory, did not return to the surface to live out its days in quiet contentment. It dissolved into the void, became part of something larger, lost its individual existence in the collective darkness. This is not a happy ending in the conventional sense, but it is an ending, a completion, a resolution to a story that had been waiting for centuries to conclude. And the Radiance? The Radiance found peace too, though she would not have called it that. Her light was extinguished, her consciousness ended, her eternal existence finally brought to a close. She had burned for eons, had blazed across the dreams of countless beings, had refused to fade even when the world forgot her. And now she is gone, consumed by the very emptiness she had fought against, her brilliance swallowed by the darkness that had always been her opposite. There is a lesson here about the nature of endings. We fear them, resist them, fight against them with everything we have. The Radiance fought against her ending for centuries, infecting an entire kingdom rather than accept that her time had passed. But endings come regardless, and when they come, they bring their own kind of peace. The struggle is over. The fight is done. There's nothing left to do but rest. Your day is ending now, reaching its natural conclusion. The struggles of the day, whatever they were, are becoming part of the past. The challenges you faced, the problems you solved or failed to solve, the interactions you had and the emotions you felt, all of it is settling into memory, becoming part of the story of who you are. And now the story of this day is ending, and a new chapter, the chapter of sleep, is beginning. There is a bench in the City of Tears where the night can rest, looking out over the rain-soaked streets of Hallownest's capital. The rain falls eternally there, dripping from the lake above, creating a constant gentle sound that fills the empty city. Sitting on that bench, watching the rain, the night can simply exist for a moment without purpose, without direction, without the need to fight or explore or progress. These moments of rest are scattered throughout Hollow Night. Benches where the night can sit, hot springs where it can heal, quiet spaces where the relentless challenge of the game pauses and something like peace becomes possible. The game understands that rest is necessary, that even a hollow being needs moments of stillness, that the journey cannot be all struggle and no respite. You're finding your own bench now, your own moment of rest in the journey of your day. The challenges are behind you, at least for tonight. The struggles can wait until morning. Right now there is only this moment, this breath, this gentle transition from waking to sleeping. The rain in the City of Tears never stops. It has been falling for centuries, will fall for centuries more, a constant gentle presence that fills the silence of the empty streets. There is something soothing about rain, about the white noise of water falling, about the sense of being sheltered while the world outside is wet and grey. Imagine that rain now, falling gently around you, creating a cocoon of sound that separates you from the world. The rain doesn't demand anything from you. It doesn't need you to act or respond or engage. It simply falls, and you simply rest, and the two of you exist together in a moment of peace. The resting grounds are another location of quiet in Hollow Night, a place where the dead of Hallownest lie in peace. The spirits that once wandered there have found their rest, have moved on to whatever comes after, have let go of the world they once inhabited. The graves are quiet, the monuments are still, the air is calm. Death in Hollow Night is not always an ending. The knight dies repeatedly throughout the game, leaving behind a shade that must be defeated to recover what was lost. This shade is the void within the knight, temporarily separated from its shell, hostile and dangerous until it is reabsorbed. Death is a setback, a challenge, but not a conclusion. The knight always returns, always continues, always presses forward, but the dead in the resting grounds are truly dead, truly at rest, truly finished with the struggles of existence. They have reached an ending that the knight, with its endless returns, may never reach. There is something peaceful about that finality, something restful about an ending that is truly an ending. Sleep is not death, but it shares some of death's qualities. Consciousness ends, at least for a while. The self that struggled through the day dissolves into dreams or into the deeper void of dreamless sleep. And then, in the morning, something returns. The same self, or something like it, ready to struggle again. The cycle of sleep and waking is a small echo of the cycle of death and rebirth that runs through Hollow Knight's lore. The Grim Troop's ritual, the Radiance's infection, the vessel's creation and destruction. All of these are cycles, patterns that repeat, endings that become beginnings. Sleep is your cycle, your nightly death and rebirth, your participation in the eternal pattern of rest and renewal. Let yourself enter the cycle now. Let the day die. Let consciousness fade. Let the self that has been awake all day finally rest. Tomorrow you will be reborn, will wake into a new day, will begin the cycle again. But tonight, there is only the ending, only the rest, only the peace that comes when the struggle pauses. The Hollow Night cycle is finally broken. For centuries it hung in chains, containing the Radiance, enduring her assault, failing slowly but never completely. And then the night came, and the cycle ended, and something new became possible. The Hollow Night is at rest now, truly at rest, its centuries of torment finally concluded. You can rest too, not for centuries, not through torment, but simply for tonight, simply through the natural darkness of sleep. Your cycle continues. You will wake, you will struggle, you will rest again. But within that cycle, there are moments of peace, pauses in the pattern, spaces where you can simply be without needing to do. This is one of those moments. This is your pause, your rest, your space of peace. Let it hold you. Let it comfort you. Let it carry you into whatever dreams or darkness await. The dreamers deserve more attention as we continue our descent into rest. These three beings, Monomon the Teacher, Lurien the Watcher, and Hera the Beast, sacrificed their waking lives to maintain the seals on the Black Egg Temple. They entered an eternal sleep, their dreams forming barriers that would keep the Radiance contained, that would prevent anyone from reaching the Hollow Night, and potentially releasing the god trapped within. Monomon was Hallownest's greatest scholar, a jellyfish-like being who devoted her existence to the pursuit and preservation of knowledge. She created the teachers, archives, a vast repository of learning protected by acid that would destroy any unworthy intruder. Her students carried her teachings into the world, spreading knowledge even as the kingdom crumbled around them. Quirrell was one of these students, and his story intertwines with the knights throughout the game. He appears at key moments, offering observations and assistance, clearly connected to something larger than himself, even if he doesn't fully understand what. When the knight finally reaches Monomon's chamber and breaks her seal, Quirrell is there, having followed his own path to the same destination. He helps the knight complete its task, and then he disappears. You can find Quirrell one last time, sitting at the edge of the blue lake looking out over the water. His nail rests beside him, abandoned. He speaks of feeling complete, of having fulfilled his purpose, of being ready to rest. And then, if you leave and return, he is gone. Only his nail remains, a memorial to a being who found peace at the end of his journey. Quirrell's fate is ambiguous. Did he die? Did he simply leave? Did he sink into the lake, choosing to end his existence in the same waters where he found his final peace? The game doesn't say, and perhaps it doesn't matter. What matters is that he found completion, found rest, found an ending that felt right to him. His story was told, and then it was over. Lurien the Watcher was devoted to the Pale King with an intensity that bordered on obsession. He watched over the City of Tears from his spire, maintaining vigilance even when there was nothing to watch for, serving a king who had long since abandoned him. His loyalty was absolute, unquestioning, perhaps unhealthy in its completeness. When the knight reaches Lurien's chamber, it finds him still watching, still loyal, still devoted to a king who will never return. Breaking his seal feels almost cruel, ending the dream of a being whose entire existence was defined by service, whose purpose was to watch and wait and serve. But the seals must break, and Lurien's watch must end, and the Watcher finally rests. Hera the Beast was queen of Deepnest, a realm of spiders and darkness that existed uneasily within Hallownest's borders. She was powerful, independent, not naturally inclined to serve the Pale King's purposes. Her agreement to become a dreamer required a bargain, a price that the Pale King was willing to pay. That price was Hornet. Hera wanted an heir, a daughter to continue her line and rule Deepnest after her. The Pale King agreed, and from their union came the child who would become one of the game's most important characters. Hera entered her eternal sleep, knowing that her daughter would live, would rule, would carry on what she had built. But Hera never saw Hornet grow up. She never watched her daughter become the fierce warrior who guards Hallownest's secrets. She never knew what Hornet would become, what she would do, how she would carry the weight of being the child of two higher beings. Hera's sacrifice was complete. She gave up not just her waking life, but her chance to be a mother, to raise her child, to see what her bargain had bought. Hornet carries this weight throughout the game. She is the daughter of a dreamer and a vanished king, the half-sister of countless hollow vessels, the guardian of a kingdom that is already dead. She fights because fighting is what she knows, protects because protecting is her purpose, persists because persistence is all she has left. When Hornet first encounters the knight, she attacks. She sees another vessel, another potential threat, another being that might disturb the seals her mother died to maintain. But as the game progresses, her attitude changes. She recognizes something in the knight, sees its determination, comes to understand that it might be the solution rather than the problem. By the end of the game, Hornet is something like an ally. She appears at crucial moments, offers guidance and assistance, seems to hope that the knight will succeed where the Hollow Knight failed. In some endings, she is trapped in the Black Egg Temple when the seals reform, becoming a new dreamer to maintain the containment. In others, she survives, the last child of the Pale King, left to carry on in a world that has moved past the tragedy that defined her existence. The dreamer's sacrifice raises questions about the nature of sleep and consciousness. They entered an eternal dream, their minds active but disconnected from the waking world, their consciousness devoted entirely to maintaining the seals. Were they aware in their dreams of what was happening outside? Did they know when the infection began to spread again, when the seals began to weaken, when the night finally came to end their watch? The game suggests that they were aware, at least partially. When the night enters their dreams to break the seals, it faces challenges and guardians, as if the dreamer's sleeping minds are still trying to fulfill their purpose. Monomon's dream is full of archives and knowledge. Lurien's dream is full of watching and waiting. Hera's dream is full of spiders and darkness. Even in sleep they remained who they were. This is a comforting thought as you approach your own sleep. You will not cease to be yourself when consciousness fades. Your dreams, if they come, will be your dreams, shaped by who you are and what you've experienced. The self that has been awake all day will continue in some form, processing and integrating and resting, even when you're not aware of it. Sleep is not an ending but a transition. The dreamers understood this. They entered sleep not to end their existence but to transform it, to become something that could serve a purpose their waking selves could not. Your sleep serves a purpose too, even if that purpose is simply rest, simply renewal, simply the pause that makes continued waking possible. Let yourself transition now. Let the waking self begin to fade. Let the sleeping self begin to emerge. Let the boundary between the two grow thin and permeable. You are not ending. You are changing. You are not dying. You are dreaming. The self continues, in one form or another, through the darkness and into the light of morning. The infection that the dreamers helped contain deserves closer examination. It was not merely a disease, but a manifestation of the Radiance's will, a way for a forgotten god to force herself back into the minds that had abandoned her. The infected bugs of Hallownest did not choose their fate. They were victims, their consciousness invaded by a force they couldn't understand or resist. The orange glow in their eyes was the Radiance's light, burning away their individual selves, replacing their will with hers. They became extensions of her fury, soldiers in a war they never enlisted for, weapons wielded by a god against the kingdom that had forgotten her. Some of the infected retained fragments of their former selves. The broken vessel, encountered in the ancient basin, was once a sibling of the night. Another vessel, another child of the Pale King, another being created to be hollow. But this vessel was infected, its emptiness filled not with void, but with the Radiance's light. It attacks the night with desperate fury, driven by the god within it, unable to stop even if some part of it wanted to. Defeating the broken vessel is one of the game's more tragic encounters. You're not fighting an enemy but a sibling, not destroying a threat, but ending a suffering. The broken vessel was never given a chance to fulfill its purpose, was infected before it could be tested, was transformed from a potential savior into another victim of the Radiance's rage. The Lost Kin is the dream version of the broken vessel, encountered if you use the dream nail on its corpse. This fight is harder, more intense, as if the vessel's spirit is stronger than its infected body ever was. Defeating the Lost Kin feels like liberation, like finally freeing a sibling from the torment that consumed it, like giving rest to a being that never knew peace in life. Throughout Hallownest, the infected wander and attack, driven by impulses they don't understand. Some were once citizens of the kingdom, going about their lives until the infection took them. Some were warriors or scholars or artists. Their skills now turned to violence, their knowledge burned away by the Radiance's light. They are tragic figures, victims twice over, first of the infection, then of the Night who must destroy them to progress. The Night kills hundreds of infected bugs throughout the game. It has no choice. They attack on sight, driven by the Radiance's will, unable to be reasoned with or avoided. But each kill is a small tragedy, another life ended, another victim of a conflict that began before they were born. This violence is part of what makes Hollow Knight's world feel real. The Knight is not a hero in the traditional sense, not a saviour who makes everything better. It is a force moving through a dying world, ending suffering where it can, but also causing suffering in the process. The infected bugs it kills were people once. They had lives, had purposes, had selves that the infection burned away. The Knight's nail ends their torment, but it also ends any chance they might have had for recovery, for cure, for return to what they were. There is no cure for the infection in Hollow Knight. The only solutions are containment or destruction. Seal the Radiance away and hope the infected recover on their own, or destroy the Radiance utterly and end the infection at its source. Neither option restores what was lost. The bugs who were consumed remain consumed. The selves that were burned away remain burned. The tragedy is complete regardless of which ending the player achieves. This is a hard truth, but it is a truth nonetheless. Some things cannot be undone. Some losses cannot be recovered. Some tragedies are complete, and the best we can do is prevent future tragedies, not repair past ones. The Knight's journey is not about fixing what went wrong, but about ending the cycle that keeps making things go wrong. It is about closure, not restoration. As you drift towards sleep, consider the closures in your own life, the things that cannot be undone, the losses that cannot be recovered, the tragedies that are complete. These are heavy to carry, yes, but carrying them is not the same as being crushed by them. You can acknowledge what was lost, mourn what cannot be restored, and still move forward. You can find closure without finding cure. Sleep offers a kind of closure to each day. Whatever happened, happened. Whatever was done, was done. The day is complete, its story told, its events settled into the past. Tomorrow is a new day, a new story, a new chance. But tonight, there is only the closure of rest, the ending of waking, the peace that comes when the day's chapter finally concludes. Let the closure come. Let the day end. Let the story of today settle into memory, complete and unchangeable. Tomorrow you can write new stories, face new challenges, create new possibilities. But tonight, there is only rest, only peace, only the gentle darkness that holds you until morning. Let the ending come. Let the day conclude. Let the transition happen naturally, without resistance, without fear. Endings are not enemies to be fought, but passages to be accepted. They make room for what comes next. Clear space for new beginnings. Allow rest before the next struggle begins. The Abyss knows this. It has witnessed countless endings. The ending of the vessel's brief lives, the ending of the Pale King's reign, the ending of Hallownest itself. It has absorbed them all, held them all, accepted them all without judgment, and it continues, unchanged, eternal, ready to witness whatever endings come next. You're approaching an ending now, the ending of waking consciousness, the transition into sleep. This is not a death but a pause, not a conclusion but an intermission. You will wake again, as you have woken every morning of your life. But for now, for these hours of darkness, you can rest. You can let go. You can sink into the void of sleep and trust that it will hold you until morning. The darkness behind your closed eyes is not the absolute darkness of the abyss, but it is related to it. It is your personal void, your own small emptiness, the space where consciousness goes when it needs to rest. This darkness is not hostile. It is not threatening. It is simply the absence of light, the quiet that comes when the eyes close, the peace that comes when the mind stops grasping at the world. Let this darkness embrace you. Let it wrap around you like a blanket, warm and soft and safe. The darkness is not something to fear, but something to welcome. Not an enemy, but a friend. It has been with you since before you were born, has held you every night of your life, will hold you tonight as it has held you always. The void in hollow night is this darkness taken to its extreme, concentrated and personified and given history. But the darkness itself is familiar. You know it. You've always known it. And tonight you can rest in it, can sink into it, can let it carry you wherever sleep wants to take you. The story of the Abyss is a story of tragedy. Yes, children were created and destroyed. A kingdom fell. Gods clashed and one was extinguished. But it is also a story of resolution, of endings that bring peace, of struggles that finally conclude. The hollow night's suffering is over. The radiance's burning is done. The siblings have served their purpose. The night has completed its journey. Everything that needed to happen has happened, and now there is rest. Your story today is concluding too. Whatever happened, whatever you did or didn't do, whatever you achieved or failed to achieve, it's done now. The day is over. The chapter is complete. And now you can rest, can let go of the day's weight, can sink into the darkness and trust that tomorrow will bring whatever tomorrow brings. The void is patient. It has waited for eons and will wait for eons more. It does not rush, does not demand, does not insist. It simply offers itself, simply waits, simply is. And tonight, it offers you rest. Accept the offer. Let your breathing slow until it moves without your attention. Let your muscles release until your body feels heavy and warm. Let your thoughts drift until they lose their edges, until they blur into images, until they fade into the gentle nothing of approaching sleep. The abyss remembers everything that has touched it. The vessels, the pale king, the radiance, the night. All of them are held in its eternal memory, part of its endless story. And tonight, in some small way, you have touched the abyss too. You have contemplated its mysteries, considered its tragedies, found its strange and terrible beauty. This touching leaves a trace, a connection, a thread that links you to something ancient and vast. You're not alone in the darkness. You're part of something larger, connected to something eternal, held by something that has existed since before time and will exist after time ends. The void does not judge you, does not evaluate you, does not care about your successes or failures. It simply accepts you as it accepts all things, as it has accepted all things since the beginning. Rest now in this acceptance. Rest in the knowledge that you are held, that you are safe, that the darkness is not hostile but welcoming. Rest in the void of sleep, in the emptiness that allows renewal, in the nothing that makes tomorrow possible. The Colosseum of Fools offers yet another perspective on Hallownest's complexity. This arena, hidden in the kingdom's edge, is where warriors come to fight and die for the entertainment of crowds that no longer exist. The Colosseum survived the infection, after a fashion. Its inhabitants are violent and dangerous, but they retain enough self to maintain their brutal traditions. The knight can enter the Colosseum and fight through 3 trials of increasing difficulty. The first trial is challenging but manageable. The second trial is significantly harder. The third trial, the Trial of the Fool, is one of the game's most demanding challenges, a gauntlet of enemies that tests every skill the knight has developed. Completing the trials earns the knight geo and respect, but little else. The Colosseum is not a place of meaning or purpose, it is a place of violence for its own sake, combat without cause, struggle without resolution. The warriors who fight there are not heroes or villains, but simply fighters, beings who have found a way to continue existing by doing the only thing they know how to do. There is something sad about the Colosseum beneath its brutality. These are beings who have lost everything except the ability to fight. They have no kingdom to serve, no cause to champion, no future to build toward. They have only the arena, only the combat, only the endless cycle of violence that gives their existence whatever meaning it still has. The knight participates in this cycle, fights through the trials, emerges victorious. But what has it won? Geo that it may or may not need, respect from beings it will never see again, the satisfaction of having overcome a challenge. The Colosseum offers no resolution, no closure, no sense that anything has been accomplished beyond the immediate victory. This is another kind of existence, different from the tragedy of the Abyss but related to it. The Colosseum's fighters are not hollow, not empty, not without self. But they are purposeless, directionless, trapped in a cycle that leads nowhere. They have selves, but those selves have nothing to do except fight. They exist, but their existence has no meaning beyond its own continuation. The knight's journey offers an alternative to this purposeless existence. The knight has a goal, a direction, a reason to move through the world. It is not fighting for fighting's sake, but fighting towards something, even if that something is as abstract as ending the infection or breaking the cycle. Purpose, it seems, is what separates meaningful existence from mere continuation. As you approach sleep, consider your own purposes, the goals that give your life direction, the reasons that get you out of bed in the morning, the things you're working toward even when the work is hard. These purposes are not burdens but gifts, not weights but wings. They give your existence meaning beyond mere continuation, transform your days from empty time into chapters of a story you're writing. Tonight you can set those purposes aside. They will be there tomorrow, waiting for you, ready to give your waking hours their shape and direction. But sleep has its own purpose: rest, renewal, the restoration of the self that will pursue those purposes tomorrow. Tonight, the purpose is simply to rest. That is enough. That is everything. The deepnest is perhaps the most unsettling region in Hollow Knight, a realm of spiders and darkness that exists at the edge of Hallownest territory. Hera the Beast ruled here before she became a dreamer, and her influence still pervades the twisting tunnels and web-choked passages. The deepnest is dark in a different way than the abyss. The abyss is dark with the darkness of the void, absolute and primordial. The deepnest is dark with the darkness of things hiding, of predators waiting, of dangers that could strike at any moment. The abyss is peaceful in its emptiness. The deepnest is threatening in its fullness. Spiders lurk in every shadow, dropping from ceilings, emerging from walls, attacking with a ferocity that makes even the infected seem tame. The deepnest inhabitants are not mindless. They are hunters, predators, beings that have adapted to their environment by becoming the most dangerous things in it. Navigating the deepnest is one of the game's most stressful experiences. The darkness limits visibility. The enemies are aggressive and numerous. The layout is confusing, full of dead ends and loops that make progress difficult to track. Many players dread the deepnest, avoid it as long as possible, rush through it when they finally have no choice. But the deepness is also beautiful in its own terrible way. The webs that cover everything catch what little light exists, creating patterns of silver against the black. The spiders themselves are elegantly designed, their movements fluid and purposeful. The architecture of the region, what little of it exists, suggests a culture adapted to darkness, a society that thrives where others would perish. Hera chose to rule here, chose to make the deepnest her domain, chose to raise her daughter in this realm of spiders and shadow. She was not a victim of the deepnest, but its queen, not trapped in darkness, but at home in it. The deepnest was hers, and she shaped it as much as it shaped her. Hornet carries this heritage. She is the daughter of the deepnest queen, raised in darkness, trained in combat, shaped by a culture that values strength and survival above all else. When she fights the night, she fights with the ferocity of the deepnest, the precision of a predator, the confidence of someone who has never known a world where she was not dangerous. The deepnest reminds us that darkness is not always empty. Sometimes darkness is full of life, full of danger, full of things that have adapted to thrive where light cannot reach. The void of the abyss is one kind of darkness, peaceful and primordial. The darkness of the deepnest is another kind, active and threatening and very much alive. As you approach sleep, consider which kind of darkness awaits you. The darkness of sleep is usually more like the abyss than the deepnest, empty, peaceful, restful. But sometimes dreams bring the deepnest darkness, full of threats and anxieties, full of things that chase and frighten. If such dreams come tonight, remember that you are the night, capable of facing whatever the darkness contains. You have navigated worse, you will navigate this too. But hopefully, tonight's darkness will be peaceful. Hopefully, the void of sleep will be empty and restful. A space where nothing threatens and nothing demands. Hopefully you will sink into the abyss rather than the deepnest, will find the primordial peace rather than the predatory dark. Let the peaceful darkness come. Let the empty void receive you. Let the abyss, not the deepnest, be your destination tonight. The crystal peak glitters with minerals that the bugs of Hallownest once mined, a region of beauty and danger where crystals grow in impossible formations and the infected wander through tunnels that echo with the sounds of long-abandoned industry. The miners who once worked here are gone, transformed by the infection, or simply dead. Their equipment remains, pickaxes and carts and the infrastructure of extraction, but the purpose it served has been forgotten. The crystals continue to grow, indifferent to the tragedy that has befallen those who once harvested them. There is something melancholy about abandoned industry, about machines that no longer serve their purpose, about infrastructure that has outlived the society that built it. The Crystal Peak is full of this melancholy, full of the sense that something important once happened here and now nothing happens at all. The crystals themselves are beautiful, catching and refracting what little light exists, creating rainbows in the darkness. They grow without purpose, without plan, without any awareness of the beauty they create. They are simply crystals, doing what crystals do, existing in the way that crystals exist. There is a lesson here about beauty and purpose. The crystals are beautiful, but they have no purpose. The miners had purpose, but they are gone. Beauty and purpose do not always coincide, do not always support each other, do not always exist in the same place at the same time. Your sleep tonight will be purposeful. It will restore you, renew you, prepare you for tomorrow. But it may not be beautiful, may not be memorable, may not be anything you can recall or describe. That's okay. Purpose is enough. Rest is enough. You don't need your sleep to be beautiful. You just need it to be restful. Let the purpose of sleep be enough. Let the restoration happen without needing to be witnessed or remembered. Let the night do its work in darkness, in silence, in the void where consciousness cannot follow. Tomorrow you will be restored. That is the purpose. That is enough. The stag stations scattered throughout Hallownest tell their own story of connection and loss. Once, a network of stag beetles carried passengers between the kingdom's distant regions, a transportation system that linked the far-flung corners of Hallownest into a unified whole. The stations were busy places, full of travellers and commerce and the bustle of a living civilization. Now, only one stag remains. The old stag, ancient and tired, still runs his routes through the abandoned stations, still carries the night from place to place, still maintains the network that once served a kingdom. He is the last of his kind, the sole survivor of a species that was essential to Hallownest's functioning. The old stag's loneliness is palpable. He speaks of the other stags, of the routes they ran, of the passengers they carried. He remembers a time when the stations were full, when his kind were valued and needed, when the network hummed with activity. Now there is only silence, only empty platforms, only the echoing tunnels that once rang with the sound of stag hooves. And yet the old stag continues. He runs his routes, carries his passenger, maintains his purpose even when that purpose has lost most of its meaning. He's not bitter, not resentful, not angry at the fate that has left him alone. He simply continues, because continuing is what he knows how to do, because stopping would mean admitting that everything he was is gone. There is something heroic in this persistence, something admirable in the old stag's refusal to give up even when giving up would be understandable. He has lost everything, his kind, his passengers, his purpose, and yet he continues. He finds meaning in the continuation itself, in the act of running routes that no one needs, in the maintenance of a network that serves almost no one. The knight's use of the stag stations gives the old stag's existence new meaning. Finally, there is a passenger again. Finally, the routes serve a purpose. Finally, the network that the old stag has maintained through all the empty years has a reason to exist. The night's journey gives the old stag's persistence its reward. As you approach sleep, consider your own persistences. The things you continue to do even when their purpose seems unclear. The routines you maintain even when no one seems to need them. The efforts you make even when the rewards are uncertain. These persistences are not meaningless. They are preparations, maintenances, the keeping of networks that may one day serve purposes you cannot yet imagine. Your rest tonight is a persistence too. You have rested every night of your life, have maintained the routine of sleep, even when it seemed like there was too much to do, even when the world demanded your waking attention. This persistence has kept you functional, has maintained the network of your body and mind, has prepared you for whatever purposes tomorrow might bring. Continue the persistence tonight. Rest as you have always rested, sleep as you have always slept. Maintain the routine that has carried you through your life. The old stag runs his routes, you run yours. Both are acts of faith. Both are preparations for purposes not yet known. Both are the quiet heroism of continuing when continuing is all you can do. Elderbug waits in Dirtmouth, the small town above Hallownest, and his waiting is another kind of persistence. He is old, tired, perhaps the last uninfected bug in the surface town. He watches the night come and go, offers what little wisdom he has, maintains his existence in a place that has lost almost everyone else. Elderbug is afraid. He admits this freely, speaks of his fear of the depths below, his reluctance to venture into the kingdom that has claimed so many. He is not a hero, not a warrior, not someone who faces danger with courage. He's simply an old bug, waiting in a dying town, hoping that somehow things will get better. And yet Elderbug's fear does not prevent him from being kind. He welcomes the night, offers what help he can, provides a point of stability in a world that has lost most of its stability. His fear is honest, his limitations are real, but within those limitations he does what he can. He persists, in his own small way, maintaining his existence and his kindness, even when both seem futile. The night can bring things to Elderbug, flowers, items, evidence of the world below. Each gift changes Elderbug slightly, gives him new things to think about, new reasons to hope or fear. He's not static, not unchanging, not simply waiting for the end. He is growing, in his own small way, becoming something slightly different with each interaction. By the end of the game, if the night has been thorough, Elderbug has changed. He is still afraid, still limited, still an old bug in a dying town. But he has also been touched by the night's journey, has been given glimpses of a world he was too afraid to explore himself. He has grown, not into a hero, but into a slightly braver version of himself. This is another kind of heroism, the heroism of small growth, of incremental change, of becoming slightly better even when dramatic. Transformation is impossible. Elderbug will never be a warrior, will never descend into Hallownest, will never face the dangers that the night faces. But he can become a little braver, a little more hopeful, a little more connected to the world beyond his small town. You are capable of this kind of heroism too. You may not be able to transform yourself dramatically, may not be able to become someone entirely different overnight, but you can grow incrementally, can become slightly better, can change in small ways that accumulate over time. Tonight's rest is part of that growth. a small act of self-care that contributes to the larger project of becoming who you are meant to be. Rest now and grow. Sleep and change. Let the night do its small work of restoration, its incremental work of renewal. Tomorrow you will be slightly different, slightly more rested, slightly more restored, slightly more ready for whatever comes. That is enough. That is the heroism of small growth, the persistence of incremental change. The nailsmith sits in the city of tears, devoted to his craft, perfecting the art of nail making, even as the kingdom crumbles around him. He upgrades the knight's weapon, makes it stronger and more effective, pours his skill into the creation of something that will be used for violence. When the knight's nail is fully upgraded, the nailsmith's purpose is complete. He has created his masterpiece, has achieved the perfection he spent his life pursuing, and then he asks the knight to kill him, to end his existence now that his purpose is fulfilled. This request is disturbing, but it is also understandable. The nailsmith has devoted his entire existence to a single goal, and now that goal is achieved. What is left for him? What purpose can he serve now that his purpose is complete? He sees death as the appropriate ending, the final punctuation on a life well lived. The knight can grant this request, can kill the nailsmith with the very weapon he perfected. Or the knight can refuse, can leave the nailsmith alive to find a new purpose. If the knight refuses and later visits a certain location, it finds the nailsmith there, having discovered a new passion, painting. He has found a new purpose, a new reason to exist, a new way to express the creativity that once went into nail making. This is a profound statement about purpose and existence. The nailsmith believed that his life was over when his purpose was complete. But purpose is not singular, not fixed, not the only thing that gives existence meaning. New purposes can be found. New passions can be discovered. The end of one thing can be the beginning of another. As you approach sleep, consider your own purposes. They are not fixed, not final, not the only things that give your life meaning. If one purpose ends, another can begin. If one passion fades, another can be discovered. You are not defined by a single goal, not limited to a single path, not finished when one chapter of your life concludes. Tonight's rest is a small ending, the end of the day, the end of waking consciousness, the end of this particular chapter of your existence. But it is also a beginning, the beginning of sleep, the beginning of restoration, the beginning of the process that will prepare you for tomorrow's purposes. Let the ending come. Let the beginning follow. Let the cycle continue as it has continued every night of your life, as it will continue for all the nights to come. You're not finished. You're simply transitioning, moving from one state to another, ending one thing so that another can begin. The siblings rest in the abyss, their struggles over, their suffering ended. The hollow night rests at last, released from centuries of torment. The radiance rests, her light extinguished, her burning finally done. And you can rest too, joining them in the peace that comes when struggle ceases, when endings arrive, when the darkness finally embraces those who are ready to be embraced. Sleep now, traveller. Sleep and let the darkness hold you. Sleep and trust that morning will come. Sleep and know that you are part of something larger, something eternal, something that will remember you were here. The abyss is patient, the kingdom is quiet, the story is told, and you are ready for rest. The music of Hollow Night deserves mention as we approach the end of our journey. Christopher Larkin's score is haunting and beautiful, perfectly capturing the melancholy grandeur of the ruined kingdom. Each area has its own theme, its own mood, its own musical identity that enhances the experience of exploration. The City of Tears has its gentle piano, notes falling like the rain that gives the city its name. The melody is sad but not despairing, melancholy but not hopeless. It speaks of loss and memory, of grandeur faded but not forgotten, of a city that was once great and is now at rest. Greenpath has its organic sounds, suggesting growth and life amid the decay. The music there is lighter, more hopeful, a reminder that even in a dying kingdom, some things still flourish. The contrast with the City of Tears is striking. Life and death, growth and decay, hope and memory, all coexisting in the same ruined world. The Abyss has its own sound, though it is barely music at all. Deep, resonant tones that seem to come from everywhere and nowhere. Vibrations that you feel more than hear. A sonic representation of the weight and darkness that pervades the depths. The music of the Abyss is not melodic but atmospheric, not beautiful but profound. And the boss themes, the music that plays during the game's most challenging encounters, are intense and memorable. The Hollow Knight's theme combines tragedy and determination, sorrow and struggle, the weight of centuries of suffering expressed in sound. The Radiance's theme blazes with divine fury, appropriate for a god finally unleashed after ages of imprisonment. Let this music play in your imagination as you drift towards sleep. Not the intense boss themes, but the quieter pieces, the gentle piano of the City of Tears, the organic sounds of Greenpath, the deep resonance of the Abyss. Let the music carry you. Let it create a space for rest. Let it be the soundtrack of your descent into darkness. The art of Hollow Knight is equally remarkable, a hand-drawn style that brings the ruined kingdom to life with haunting beauty. The bugs of Hallownest are stylized but expressive, conveying personality and emotion through simple designs. The environments are detailed and evocative, telling stories through visual design alone. The Abyss is rendered in absolute blacks and pale whites, a stark contrast that emphasizes the depth of the darkness. The Void Sea is a flat plane of black that seems to extend forever, broken only by the pale structures the Pale King built. The siblings' remains are scattered across the floor, small pale shapes against the infinite dark, a visual representation of the tragedy that occurred here. The night itself is a study in simplicity, a small, pale figure with 2 dark eyes and 2 small horns. It has no mouth, no expression, no obvious way to convey emotion, and yet, through animation and context, it becomes sympathetic, becomes someone you care about, becomes a character despite having no voice and no face. This is the power of Hollow Knight's design. It creates meaning through implication, emotion through suggestion, story through environment. The Abyss is terrifying not because the game tells you it's terrifying, but because everything about its design, the darkness, the silence, the remains of the siblings, the weight of the void, creates that terror naturally. And the Abyss is peaceful for the same reason. The design creates peace through stillness, through the absence of threat, through the sense that everything that needed to happen has already happened. The tragedy is complete, the struggle is over, what remains is rest. Let the visual memory of the Abyss settle into your mind as you approach sleep. The darkness, the stillness, the pale structures glowing faintly against the infinite black, the void sea stretching beyond sight, patient and eternal, the lighthouse standing dark and silent, its watch ended. Everything at rest, everything at peace, everything waiting for nothing because nothing more needs to happen. This is the image to carry into sleep, not the horror of the abyss, not the tragedy of the vessels, but the peace that comes after, the stillness that follows struggle, the rest that follows effort, the darkness that follows light. You have struggled today, you have made effort, you have burned with the light of consciousness, have thought and felt and acted and been, and now the light is fading and the darkness is coming and rest is finally here. Let it come. Let the darkness embrace you. Let the stillness hold you. Let the peace of the abyss become your peace. Its rest become your rest. Its eternal patience become your patience with yourself. The void is eternal. It existed before the first light, will exist after the last light fades. It is the background against which all existence plays out, the canvas on which all stories are painted, the silence in which all sounds occur. Without the void, there would be nothing, and with the void, there is everything. You carry the void within you, as all beings do, the spaces between your thoughts, the pauses between your breaths, the darkness behind your closed eyes. These are all expressions of the void, small abysses that exist within your being. You're not separate from the darkness. You are made of it as much as you are made of light. This is not frightening. It is simply true, and truth is always better than illusion. You are a being of light and darkness, of presence and absence, of fullness and emptiness. The void is part of you, and you are part of the void. This connection is not a burden but a gift, a reminder that you are part of something larger, something eternal, something that will endure long after your individual existence has ended. Rest now in this knowledge. Rest in the void that is part of you, in the darkness that you carry, in the emptiness that makes your fullness possible. You are home, you are safe, you are at peace. The void is eternal, and so, in some small way, are you. Good night, little ghost. Good night, weary traveller. Good night, child of the waking world. The void welcomes you home. There is one more story to tell before we conclude, one more thread to follow into the darkness. It is the story of the Pale King's greatest creation. Not the vessels, not the seals, not even Hallownest itself, but the gift he gave to the bugs who would become his subjects. Before the Pale King arrived, the bugs of this land were simple creatures, driven by instinct, living and dying without awareness of their own existence. They built nothing, created nothing, remembered nothing. They were alive, but they were not conscious in any meaningful sense. The Pale King changed this. His very presence awakened something in the bugs around him, sparked consciousness where none had existed before. They began to think, to plan, to remember. They began to build cities and create art and develop culture. They became people in a way they had never been before. This gift of consciousness is the foundation of everything that follows in Hollow Knight's story. Without it, there would be no Hallownest, no infection, no tragedy. The bugs would have continued their simple existence, unaware of the gods that moved around them, untouched by the conflicts that would tear the kingdom apart. Was the gift worth the cost? This is perhaps the deepest question the game asks. Consciousness brought civilization, but it also brought suffering. Awareness brought achievement, but it also brought the vulnerability that the Radiance exploited. The bugs of Hallownest gained the ability to think and feel and create, but they also gained the ability to be infected, to be consumed, to lose themselves in ways that unconscious creatures never could. The Pale King clearly believed the gift was worth it. He devoted his existence to nurturing the consciousness he had awakened, to building a kingdom where thinking beings could flourish. But the Radiance's infection suggests a darker possibility, that consciousness itself is a vulnerability, that awareness opens doors that cannot be closed, that the gift of thought is also the curse of susceptibility. The vessels were the Pale King's attempt to have it both ways, to create beings that could act in the world without being vulnerable to the Radiance's assault. But the vessels failed because consciousness cannot be designed out of complex beings. The gift the Pale King gave to Hallownest, he could not take back from his own children. This is the tragedy beneath the tragedy, the loss beneath the loss. The Pale King gave consciousness to a world, and that consciousness became the weapon used to destroy everything he built. His greatest gift became his greatest vulnerability. The light he brought to Hallownest became the crack through which the Radiance's infection spread. And yet, would we choose differently? Would we trade consciousness for safety, awareness for immunity, the ability to think and feel and create for the simple existence of creatures who cannot be infected because they have nothing to infect? The game doesn't answer this question, but it asks it again and again through every infected bug, every failed vessel, every tragedy that unfolds in the ruins of Hallownest. You are conscious, you are aware. You have the gift that the Pale King gave to his subjects, the ability to think and feel and create. This gift makes you vulnerable to pain, to loss, to the 1,000 small infections that consciousness allows, but it also makes you capable of everything that matters, of love, of achievement, of meaning, of the rest that you are approaching now. The gift is worth the cost. It has to be. Because the alternative, unconscious existence, simple being without awareness, is not really existence at all. It is just matter moving through space, just chemistry following its laws, just the universe doing what the universe does without anyone there to notice or care. You notice, you care, you are conscious, and that consciousness is reading these words, is feeling the approach of sleep, is preparing to surrender awareness for a few hours of rest. This is the gift, and this is the cost, and this is what it means to be a thinking being in a universe that mostly isn't. Rest now, conscious one. Let the gift of awareness dim for a while. Let the thinking mind grow quiet. Let the feeling heart settle into peace. The consciousness will return in the morning, will resume its noticing and caring and creating, but tonight it can rest. Tonight, even the gift can be set aside. The abyss holds many things, the remains of the vessels, the memory of the Pale King's desperation, the void that predates everything and will outlast everything. But it also holds a kind of answer to the question of consciousness. The void is not conscious, not aware, not capable of thought or feeling, and the void is at peace, has always been at peace, will always be at peace. This is not an argument against consciousness, it is simply an observation that peace and awareness do not always coincide, that the thinking mind is often troubled while the empty void is still. Sleep offers a temporary reconciliation, a few hours when consciousness fades and something like the void's peace becomes possible. You're approaching that peace now. The thinking mind is growing quiet, the awareness is dimming. The consciousness that has been active all day is preparing to rest, to fade, to touch something like the void's eternal stillness. Let it happen. Let the peace come. Let the gift of consciousness be set aside for a few hours, not lost but resting, not ended but paused. Tomorrow you will think and feel and create again. Tomorrow the gift will be fully active, fully engaged, fully alive. But tonight there is only rest. Tonight there is only peace. Tonight there is only the darkness that holds you, the silence that surrounds you, the void that welcomes you home. No cost too great, no mind to think, no will to break, no voice to cry suffering. Born of God and void, you shall seal the blinding light that plagues their dreams. You are the vessel, you are the hollow night. Sleep well. The abyss remembers you, and in the morning when you wake you will remember too. Not everything, not every word of this long journey through darkness, not every detail of the lore we explored together, but something will remain. A sense of peace, perhaps. A feeling of having been held. A memory of darkness that was not hostile but welcoming, not threatening but restful. The abyss will still be there, in the game, in the story, in the imagination of everyone who has ever descended into its depths. The vessels will still be there, their tragedy complete, their peace finally found. The void will still be there, patient and eternal, waiting for nothing because it needs nothing, and you will be there too, awake and restored, ready to face whatever the day brings. The night will have done its work, the rest will have happened, the transformation from tired to refreshed, from depleted to renewed, will be complete. This is the gift of sleep, the gift of darkness, the gift of the void that holds us every night. We enter it tired and emerge restored. We sink into it depleted and rise from it renewed. The darkness gives us back to ourselves, better than we were, ready for another day. Thank you for taking this journey with me, through the lore of the abyss, through the tragedy of the vessels, through the darkness that is not darkness but rest. May your sleep be peaceful. May your dreams be gentle. May the void hold you safe until morning. The story is told. The journey is complete. The darkness waits, patient and welcoming. Good night.